Hey all, Jim here. So we're doing an autobiography presentation, which means that you guys have all tuned in to see what makes me me, or at least how I got to being the me I am now. Well, this should be interesting. So uh I was born cesarean. I was actually breech, so I was difficult from the get-go. Um, Meaning I was going in backwards. I did have a little bit of an umbilical hang up, but as I stated in my paper, and I've stated to other people who have asked, I don't remember any of this. I just take the word of my elders who told me this. They were there. I mean, I was there, but I'm not cognitively familiar with any of this stuff. Um, I was born here in Wilmington. The hospital I was born at no longer exists. I don't know what it's called because it's not here. It's, to my knowledge, never been here. I mean, it was, but I mean, in my recollection, my time here in Wilmington, it's never been here. I moved around when I was little. My dad worked on the railroad all the live long day, and the nights too in the beginning, mostly through my early childhood. In fact, we lived in Orchard Park, New York, which is right next to Buffalo. In fact, from our front porch, you could see the stadium where the Buffalo Bills play. When we lived there, the NFL was in a strike season, um, and yeah, I didn't get to go in any games. I have vague recollections of my time there, mainly the hardware store in town. It was an old building with creaky wood floors that were really uneven, and I dropped a fluorescent light bulb and got in trouble. There was a little boy lived behind us. He had every Star Wars action figure and accessory. He had the Millennium Falcon. He had the AT-AT, ones that look like dogs that walk around in the snow, which was amazing because we got a lot of snow in Orchard Park. So we had a lot of fun playing Empire Strikes Back and the Battles of Hoth. Um, we also played there was an Atari game called Adventure. Sure, we played that from time to time, but we did like LARPed. We LARPed that game. We made a chalice out of aluminum foil, and we made swords out of styrofoam or cardboard, and we fought dragons, and we played adventure in our backyard. And this pretend play, as I look back, it's telling. There was a lot of pretend play. We moved from Orchard Park to Wilbraham, Massachusetts, which is short drive to Springfield, Mass, where the Basketball Hall of Fame is. Uh, it was about 2 hours outside of Boston. Best landmark I can give you, other than the Basketball Hall of Fame, would be Hartford, Connecticut. We were about 20 miles north. Well, a little more than 20 miles, but about 20 minutes north of Hartford, Connecticut. In fact, I used to go to the Hartford Civic Center all the time and watch the Hartford Whalers play. And I still get chills when I hear Brass Bonanza, which is the music they played when they scored goals. It didn't happen very often then, and it happens none of the time now because they're now in Carolina. They're the Hurricane. They won a Stanley Cup and they suck. I hate them. Anyhow, yeah, moved to Wilbraham, small town, and the pretend play continued there. Again, what I remember there, it doesn't really involve other people, family to an extent, but I spent a lot of time pretend play. You know, I apparently had a lot of friends. I just don't remember any of them. I don't know if it was by choice, if it was by choice based on the choices I made later in life that I just forgot. Not really sure. What I know is that I recall playing games, dressing up like Superman, Batman, Spider-Man. I did a lot of that kind of pretend play. Um, Apparently Wonder Woman was something else I dressed up as. I don't remember that one, but my family sure does, and they like to bring it up as often as possible. Um, WWF, I was a big wrestling guy, and actually was talking about this the other day. I think, to me personally, it affected me deeper when I found out that the WWF was predetermined. I think that affected me more than when I found out about Santa Claus. It really messed me up, finding out that Hulk Hogan was supposed to be Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3. Like, you mean he didn't just do it on his own? Like, blew my mind, and it affected me deeply. But I was saying about the pretend play, I think it was the start of my escapism. Um, I learned to read while I was in Massachusetts, and I learned to read through comic books. It started because I loved the Batman TV show with Adam West and Burt Ward from the 60s, you know, no, 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 Batman, and the bows, the biffs, the pows, those onomatopoeias. I wanted to understand, I wanted to know what they said on screen and not have my sister or my mom tell me what they were. So I started reading comic books, and I learned what boom and click and bang and crunch, and I was able to sound out those onomatopoeias, those sound effects, and because I was able to take those sounds, I was able to start putting that into the word balloons and the thought bubbles, and I learned how to read through the Incredible Hulk and Daredevil and Batman, and and that was my next level of escape. I no longer had to dress up like Batman because I could read his adventures. And then I got really into well, I was already kind of into film like Star Wars and Indiana Jones and stuff like that. I liked getting away. Even when I was still in my own skin, I liked not pretending I was me anymore. I liked pretending I was someone else. Um, uh, my parents, very loving, and they were supportive. You know, I nothing but good things to say about them. They've been married 50 years. My mom didn't work until we moved back here to Delaware, where she worked and went to school, giving me way too much freedom. Um, Someone with my imagination and my penchant for wanting to get away. It was way too much freedom. My sister, or sisters, I should say, one when we moved back here got married very shortly thereafter, and my other sister was in high school, top grades, you name it. She was doing really well for herself. So I was kind of left on my own to figure things out. Um, Trying to think. So, oh, sorry. Um, I guess you could say there was some secure attachment issues with my dad early on, because he worked all day, he worked at night, he was on call, he was all over the place. It wasn't until we moved back here his work hours became a little more stable. I mean, railroad man, so I mean, to the minute, you knew when he was leaving, you knew when he was getting home. um, Again, I still had a lot of freedom though. And I, because he was a railroad man, I knew, I was like, I just better have my butt back in before, 6:35, because that's when he will pull in the drive. And if I'm not here, and then I have to, then there's some hell to play. So, yeah. Anyhow, coming back here, uh, shortly thereafter, I should say, is probably when I started hitting my growth spurts, going through puberty, um, becoming sexually active, started smoking. Not too long after that, started dipping into my parents. Uh, my parents really aren't drinkers, but when they would have parties, people would bring over liquor, and then my parents just held on to it forever and ever. And then I came and I started, chipping away at that. So I started drinking. Uh, Not too long after that, I started smoking weed. Uh, Weed usually leads to mushrooms, acid, things of that nature. But that's kind of, for at least a long while. That's kind of where it was. Um, call it rebellion, call it individualism, call it whatever you want. The bottom line was I'm testing boundaries and just doing what I want because I could. I had freedom to do so. Um, Again, my mom was at work, she was at school, she was the permissive parent anyway. So yeah, it was pretty easy. Now, as we learned in this chapter, or in this course, I should say, we learned about the prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed. Um, so it, unfortunately, I kind of knew that some of that, at least going in, the harm that drinking and doing drugs does to a adolescent mind. Um, to the extent of it, no, probably not. But hey, what are you gonna do? In high school, all of those activities really picked up, except for the cigarettes. They started going down because I started sports. I was playing football predominantly. I wrestled in the off season to stay in shape. I tried for baseball, and because I enjoy the sport, and I made the team, but I didn't really show up. They had another catcher, and they wanted me at second base, and it just wasn't my thing. I liked playing catcher. I tried out for basketball every year, and I love that game, and I'm terrible at it. So I never once made the team. Didn't even make the JV team. I don't think I hit a single shot during the tryouts. Um, and I hurt people playing defense, not intentionally. It just I, basketball's an awesome game, man, but you got to have strength and finesse, and it's one or the other with me. Sorry to say. So, um, I dropped out of high school when I was 16, and I worked. And I worked for a while, two jobs. I worked at a record store and I worked at a movie theater, which any stoner will tell you, those are, at least in the 90s, probably the best jobs you could ever have. And I had both of them. So I was watching movies for free and I was listening to music and getting discounts on that. And, it was great. I had some responsibilities. It was caveat to me dropping out of school, but not enough, not really. Well, when I hit about 18, that's when I hit the road, Jack. Me and some buddies went up to Philly and Fish was playing, and hit the parking lot and realized, man, you can make a pretty decent buck on the parking lot there selling different wares. I'm not going to get into it. Let's just say grilled cheese sandwiches, and so we went, and we followed Fish around. And I can tell you one thing about Fish: never seen them live, but I went to about 20 of their shows, and I'm okay with that because I had to listen to Fish in the car sometimes on while following them, and they're not my thing. Um, but we made decent money. By the time we got up north into Maine, uh, I decided I was no longer for that. I took my share. I took a trip over to a Target, as I still like to call it. It was my first time ever being in one, and I took myself and some hiking gear and some stuff and for hiking, and I hiked the Appalachian Trail from Maine to Georgia, and had a great time. Uh, Pretty much stopped smoking everything. There was weed on occasion. You run into these base camps where you pick up supplies and stuff like that, where people hit the mountains. If you've ever done the Appalachian Trail, you may know what I'm talking about. These little camps, little cottages and cabins and stuff like that. They sell grains and fruits and things that are light enough that you can carry in your pack, but live off of. They have other stuff too if you want to live dangerously and carry a lot of meat with you, but not recommended if you're going to be in the woods long term. I digress. um so occasionally you'd run into parties, people just starting their time on the trail, and it was fantastic. um when I got back, I, from Georgia, I hopped a Greyhound bus, which is an experience again. If you've never done it, I can't say I recommend it, but at the same time, I can't say I don't. It's interesting. Took a bus all the way from Georgia back here to Delaware, and uh, pretty shortly thereafter, I moved up again. This time out to Ohio, right outside uh, Athens, Ohio. It's a small town called Logan. When I was on the trail, I met a couple out there on the trail, and they were a dentist and a technician, and I worked in their office for quite some time, and it was pretty cool. Small town living, but it was nice. It was something I could kind of claim as my own. I did this. Um, Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to take it, uh, while I was there, I met a girl. She was going to school out in St. Paul, but she had family and she came to visit, and we got along quite well. I'm sorry, St. Paul is in Minnesota, and one thing led to another, and it led pretty quickly. All things considered, I was thinking with the wrong head. Oh, that was probably inappropriate. Pretend I didn't say that. Bottom line, I went to Minnesota, and moved in with this girl, and needless to say, cohabitating was not for me, at least not at that time. So left, and instead of going back to Logan, they had filled my position, so I couldn't. I came back here, did some more travels here and there. Went out to Colorado, went to Europe. Um, then I got a job working in a packaging, like a packaging store where you do a lot of shipping and stuff like that. At that time, I kind of rekindled a romance that had turned friendship, and it survived with this girl I met when I was about 17 years old, I think. And I was 17, she was 18, and had a almost 1.5-year old at the time. So anyhow, kind of rekindled that, and uh, slow going at the first. I was more reluctant than ever after the incident with Cheryl out in St. Paul. So um, I got a job at this time working in property management and just menial office work in the beginning, and it was cool. It was fine. I liked it. I liked helping people. I was helping people find a place to live, and I enjoyed that. The job morphed over time, and I was there for a long time, almost 13, 14, almost 15 years, I guess, really. And by the end of my time there, they had me doing the exact opposite of what I loved about the job in the first place. What I loved about the job was helping people find a place to live. What I ended up doing was evicting people and taking them to court, and I hated it. I hated it a lot. And to make matters worse, I didn't even get a raise for doing it. So I picked up all sorts of responsibilities on top of the job I already had. And I think in the time I was there, in that almost 15 years, I think I may have made oh about a $3 to $350 raise from my initial pay when I took the job. It was crap. It was really crap. I'll get into how that ends later, but during my time there, I gave it a whirl again with cohabitating. Only this time I was cohabitating with this girl and her child, and her other child. She had another one because I was hesitant to make any kind of commitments, and that's life is what life is, man. So we're all living together, and whew, it's cool, but it's tough, man. That's all I can say about that. At that time, I also decided I wanted to play football again. So I found this semi-pro league out of Claymont, Delaware, he was the Claymont affiliated of this pro league. And the league was actually run by Patti LaBelle, who sang the national anthem at our first game. And about what, 6 game of the season, uh, blew out my leg. I got it rolled. Um, if you ever played football before, um, and I know there's a lot of girls in this class, you probably haven't played like full on contact football, but basically my foot got pinned underneath one guy. And while my foot was pinned, another guy comes rolling in and hits my leg and bends it. If my knee's supposed to bend this way, it bent it that way. I'm doing a terrible demonstration. I tore the ACL, MCL, and the league did pay for the doctor initially. That doctor prescribed me with painkillers. Um, he recommended surgery. He also recommended, because the league forced him to uh, get a second opinion. That second opinion also prescribed me painkillers. I was getting fairly regular scripts of painkillers from 2 different doctors for good 7 months. So it was it wasn't long at all before I was totally hooked on the painkillers. And at that time, my drinking had definitely picked up um, as well. So that combination uh, wasn't necessarily great. And keep in mind, I had 2 children living with me, and didn't uh, didn't matter to me at all. I mean, it mattered that they were there, but it didn't matter my behavior, my example, any of that stuff didn't cross my mind. Um, as it happens to most people, when you're addicted to painkillers, eventually the doctors stop writing little pieces of paper that give you those painkillers, and it's painful. It hurts. It's agonizing, and it was the first time I ever heard that you can get those same things out on the street. Never needed to before, never wanted to before, so I never really thought about it. But sure enough, you can, and I did, and I did that for a couple of years until I found out how much cheaper it was to buy heroin. Uh, Heroin is considerably cheaper than painkillers on the street. Street value of a, say, 30 milligram Percocet is about $30, $30 to $35. Usually it's about $1 a milligram, whereas 15 baggies of heroin is about the same amount. They call it a bundle, and the baggies are about that tall, about that wide, and usually got powder about that much in it. So that, yeah, and each bag is probably about 3 milligrams of that. But then, all things considered, each bag was also probably about 90% fentanyl, and it's not something that the guy on the corner is going to really give you the scoop on. That's neither heads nor tails. Um, so anyway, now I'm totally in the throes of my addiction, and I welcome my first biological child in 2011. And before I can get accustomed to changing diapers and swaddling, which, by the way, I got quite good at, it because in 2012 I had monozygotic twins, identical twin girls. Because I was a womanizer, I'm pretty sure I was luckily or blessed with all girls, and now I'm completely outnumbered. My son, uh, the oldest, does not live with us. The rest do. All girls. Anyhow, that was a tough goings for a little bit. Identical twins is not an easy pregnancy. It's an even harder birth. Um, and afterwards is also pretty tough. I had one in the ICU for quite some time. I had one, so I had one in one hospital. I had another girl in another hospital with her mom. I had one at home that needed to go to daycare, and I needed to go to work and pay the bills. And This is roughly when, I started doing the speedballs where you're doing, uppers and then downers. So, the uppers to keep me up and get moving, get the kids to school, get, visit the hospital, get to work, and then the downers because I need a minute to breathe and then, fall asleep if I can. And yeah, it got pretty out of hand. Luckily, when the twins got home, I was able to kick the uppers and the speed. Um, but really all it did was allowed me then to spend more money on the other stuff. So I guess maybe not so great. I don't know. It all worked out. Or did it? So as I was saying, I get back to my job. It wasn't paying what it ought to, and I didn't feel like it was paying what it ought to. So I started a little scam on the side, skimming from the top. It affected nobody but a nameless corporation's bottom line, and not even by all that much, to be honest. Not saying what I did was right, because it wasn't. It was morally wrong. It was legally wrong. Uh, but what's done is done. So anyhow, uh, for pretty much the last time, couple, you know, honest mistakes in probation, but I had been in silver bracelets before. For pretty much the last time, I got them slapped on me, and that was the start of me saying, like, I need to get right. I need to get right. And I tried. I fell. I picked myself up. I tried. I fell. I picked myself up, and now I'm here. Um, so it's doable. There's some stumbling, man. It's not easy, but here I am now, middle adulthood. I should be having a midlife crisis. Maybe I am, because here 43 years old and I'm in school. I'm starting a whole new career path, but I don't see it as a crisis. It's not existential. I kind of knew what my purpose was. I just never really went for it before. I liked helping people. I felt good helping people. Uh, Now I kind of have way to direct where that help goes. Um, I can look back on my life. I can reflect on the successes, the triumphs, the failures, and all of that stuff. Sure, I got concerns about what I've passed on hereditarily. I I have to. I just also have to hope that the my example and their epigenetics will kind of kick in and get them to bust through the glass ceiling, so to speak. So I think I think that's everything, guys. Like, look, honestly, I'm an open book. I'll tell you what's what. I'll tell you how it is. I'll tell you whatever you need to know. If you feel like I missed something, like, hey, you totally skipped over when you were 12, like, ask me. Like, I kept pretty decent journals. I don't know if I had ones from when I was 12, but I got a lot. I got a lot. I considered bringing them down here, but I didn't want to. So, and yeah, man, that's everything. I what I learned in this course, is what I learned is specific details, specific terminology for things that I've seen, things that I've experienced, and things that I'm going to experience, or that I'm watching other people go through. I didn't know certain things had terminology. I just thought, oh, that's just what it is. I just he likes dressing up when he was a kid and playing. No, it's dramatic play, or that's pretend play. And it makes sense. You know, as a species, you know, like any other species, man, there's a gradual incline in everything. I mean, puppies are dumb and clumsy, um, but then they grow into their feet and they become more sure of themselves, and they can be trained, they can learn. And we're not much different than puppies in that regard, man. Like, in the beginning, we're cute, but we're clumsy as all get out, bumping into walls, falling on our butts. But we keep getting up, we keep moving on. We may not be as cute as a dog, At least not all of us, myself included. But you know, we're doing all right. Uh, yeah, we're doing all right.